The beef market is sizzling in China. It's the world's largest producer and second largest importer. Demand is rising fast and businesses are stepping up to meet it.
Consumers are becoming more and more interested in beef. This is our first restaurant in Shanghai. We plan to open more chain stores and use high-quality beef. We'll continue to import high-quality beef from abroad.
The government's raised tariffs on US beef, but it's allowing imports from a growing list of other countries.
As of today, Ireland has 6 factories approved to export to China. And at the moment, the Irish government is working with the Chinese government to put forward more factories to be approved hopefully later this year.
And beef isn't the only import that's finding an easier road to China. Beijing is lowering trade barriers for many industries as it looks to increase competition in the domestic market. US firms will also have access to these concessions.
China has taken steps not just to defend its own legitimate rights and interests, it's also acting to uphold the free trade system and international rules and orders for the benefit of the global economic recovery and the common interests of all countries.
The government slashing tariffs on textile and metals, including steel products, from 11.5% to 8.4%. Imports of wood and paper products, minerals and gemstones will be subjected to 5.4% duties instead of 6.6%. Average tariffs on about 1,500 other products will also drop from 10.5% to 7.8% from November 1st. Back in July, the government had already lowered the rates it charges on the sale of foreign-made consumer goods like clothing, cosmetics, home appliances, and fitness products. China's economy is still one of the world's most protected, but some analysts say the government's recent steps show its willingness to open up to freer trade.
So it shows the world China will honor its commitment. We are not changing our policies despite the climate change and the whole world trade. It shows that China will allow more of the competitions. So it's another good warning to the domestic player. You're going to face more competitions, but in the long run, it's going to be very healthy for the Chinese market and economy.
The tariff cuts also benefit Chinese consumers as the cost of these imports will drop by $8.5 billion over the next year. And that could help boost spending on other products, delivering a much-needed shot of growth to the economy. Mobin Nasir, TRT World.
And Mobin joins me now here in the studio. Mobin, Donald Trump might say that China cutting tariffs is a sign that his trade war with Beijing is actually working. Is that the case? Is this China sort of caving in to the pressure from the US?
Well, if it's a win, it's a very small win. Look, there's been pressure on China for more than a decade now about not just the tariffs, but about protectionism, which takes many different forms. You have complaints about the yuan being kept artificially low. You have complaints about China's disregard for intellectual property rights of other countries. The list is long, and the number of countries complaining is also long. It's not just the US. The EU has taken China to the WTO. Many smaller trade partners have similar complaints. So yes, China is moving, but like you heard in the report there, the average overall tariff level is still around 7.5%, and that doesn't include the country-specific tariffs that have been imposed, for instance, in the ongoing trade war with the US. So China still very difficult for foreign companies to get in, especially in markets where domestic competition exists.
Let's look at some of those barriers. I mean, you mentioned China's manipulation of the currency. Beijing insists it's not doing it to the extent that the US says it is, but the fact is it is still controlling the currency. But you mentioned those notoriously protected sectors. One example is the finance sector, which is largely protected from foreign competitors. The so-called Great Firewall of China essentially protects Chinese IT industries. So do you think we can expect any further opening up of the Chinese market, or are they really interested in these cosmetic changes?
Look, financial reforms are something that the government has talked about. And of course, there is some benefit for China as well. For instance, take the example of high-tech exports. 2/3 of China's high-tech exports are built by companies that are foreign-owned, the likes of Apple, for instance. And in order to keep them in China or have them grow in China, of course, they will have to change the rules to a certain, at least enough to keep them there. Things like requiring foreign companies to share their technology with local partners. That just doesn't work for a lot of companies whose exclusive sort of strength is those sort of trade secrets, if you will. If they have to divulge those for whatever market share in although China is a big market, having to give those details away for a lot of companies is just sort of the death knell. So it's in a lot of ways China using the strength of being a large market, requiring companies to play by its rules.
And before we let you go, Mobin, how do these changes fit in with China's broader economic plan? What's the end goal here?
Look, so what we've seen is China is moving from being a strictly export-led, export-driven economy to one where a middle class has emerged. It's contributing a lot of that consumption is domestic, and at the same time, it seems to be slowing down. November 11th will be the biggest sale, Singles Day, the Singles Day event, which is the biggest sale in the country. Already there are estimates that perhaps not as much money will be spent this year as it was in previous years. So China needs to keep those consumers going, helping them with small breaks like this 8.5 billion tax cut overall over these 1,585 products. That should help, but again, as long as global growth doesn't pick up or continues to sort of stammer along, China will be hard pressed, like the rest of the world, to build its business.
Okay, Mobin Nasir, thank you as always. Appreciate it.